Well, welcome to another episode of Ross on Cars. I'm Ross Furlong, and this is my very own Porsche 964 C4. Right, so my Porsche 964 C4, there she is in all her beauty. I was amazed to find out that I had owned it for 14 years recently. It came up just on my phone, and the first photograph I took of it back in September 2011. And also this summer I've spent quite a lot of money on it, inadvertently, as you always do with these classics. I put it in for a bit of paint work. I thought I'll invest £1,000 just to get all the little scratches and dints sorted out. And of course they found something else, and then they found something else, and then one of the motors on the spoiler didn't work, and then it turned out the air conditioning climate control was missing a motor, and so on and so forth. So it ended up costing me about £3,500 in the end this summer, this car. Such is the nature of, I suppose, classic car ownership. And it led me to think, how much have I actually spent on this car over the last 14 years? So I've been going back through all the kind of service records and looking at what I had done. The servicing itself has been what you might expect, I suppose, around about sort of £500 or £600 once a year. It's been serviced in February every year since I bought it, and I've been averaging about 1,200 miles. So there's not really a lot that can go wrong in terms of things wearing out. But the first big bill I had was to lower the front wheel arches a bit, because there used to be a big gap, like a kind of 4 centimetre gap, just an aesthetic thing on the between the front wheel arch and the wheel, which I didn't like when I look at it from the side. So I got that sorted out. That was, I think, £2,500. So that was the first sort of big bill. The second biggest bill I could find in what I've been doing is for a clutch replacement. Now that was about 4 or 5 years ago. I think I finally bit the bullet there, and it went into the shop, and I came out £7,500 later on that one. So that was pretty painful that year. That was the year after COVID, I think, so 2021. And then I've been thinking about this for some time, actually, the engine rebuild, and I've been going around getting quotes here and there and so on and so forth. And I knew with this car, I bought it at 81,000 miles, so I thought, well, it's going to need an engine rebuild at some point. And the garages have been saying, really, to get it properly sorted out at some point, you've got to consider doing a full engine rebuild. So finally, a couple of years ago, I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's get the engine rebuilt. And I found a sort of a fixed price for the work hours. So I was quoted 50 hours for the work at a set price, and then Cliff at Project 9 just said, well, look, that's a fixed cost, but parts I can't really, until I get the engine apart, I can't really tell you what that's going to cost. So so the overall bill for my engine rebuild in the end, with the work and the parts, was £23,000. So that's pretty chunky, So if you add all that together anyway, so the clutch, the engine rebuild, and maybe the lowering work I had done, a few other bits and pieces, if you add all that up over the 14 years that I've had it, I've calculated that I'm up at around £50,000 worth of spend on this car. So that's really quite a lot of money to spend on a car, but so half of that pretty much is on the engine rebuild, which means this car is now bomb-proof. This thing can go on for another 100,000 miles. It's secure in its future, if you like. So that's good to know. And happily, sheer luck really, rather than good judgment on my part, I bought the car at the bottom of the market pretty much, just by luck. And these have been going up in value. So I paid 20,000 for it, just under, spent 50,000 on it. So I'm into it for about £70,000 without thinking about insurance or petrol or anything like that. And it's hard to say actually. There aren't really very many comparables out there on the market, but I would say it's probably up there at about 75,000, 80,000 now. So in effect, if I sell it, it hasn't really cost me anything, which is kind of amazing, really. It's sort of almost, the perfect classic car ownership curve in that respect. And so that's the sort of financial picture over the last 14 years. But of course, it's not just about that. I mean, that just happened. For me, it was more about keeping the car in top nick, and just enjoying it, really. I was debating driving it around a little bit more now that my Tesla's going back. My Tesla goes back on Tuesday as a sort of more of a daily. But to be honest, driving it around these country lanes in the autumn, you start to think, well, it's starting to get quite valuable. I'm not sure I really want to be driving around muddy roads in it over the winter. But we'll see. We'll get a few more outings. Anyway, I've had a few things done on the inside over the last 14 years as well. So let me just take you through some of the stuff I've done inside, and then we'll take you for a buzz, and we'll do a POV on the drive, which is obviously what it's all about. All right, so the interior of this Porsche, really I haven't had to do much to it at all. It's in really good nick. The leather's in really good nick. 35 years. I mean, there's a little bit of piping. There was actually slate grey piping on the edges of these seats, which has sort of rubbed off really now. But the rest of it looks beautiful. These window buttons, two of them have worn out now in the last 14 years. So that's one bit that does go, just on the driver's side. I had a new stereo put in it because the one that was in it didn't look really particularly contemporary with the age of the car. So this is actually a retro-looking Blaupunkt I've got in here. It looks like a stereo from 1990, but actually it's bang up to date. So I can stream Spotify through this stereo. The speakers are original, apart from the ones at the back. The two at the back had kind of worn out, so I kept the original grills over the top and just put some kind of new back speakers in the back. And the audio is really very, very good in here. That is, if you can hear it over the sound of the magnificent flat 6, which we might as well start up now. There we go. This is the noise that attracted me to the car in the first place, the very reason I'm sat in here just hearing that in the hotel car park. Anyway, I'll turn off my 80s music and let's take it for a run. Clutch isn't too heavy, really. I mean, when I first got the car, I remember thinking the clutch was very heavy, actually. But since I had the new clutch put in 4 or 5 years ago, I haven't noticed it at all. Obviously, it's got a sports suspension on it, so you do feel the road. It's not terribly jarring. It's not as though it's makes your teeth rattle or anything like that. If you're sat in the back, maybe some of these little sleepers might cause you some trouble. Might have mentioned, I think in my first video, that I have a favourite gear in this car, which is the third gear, because what I'm doing about 30 at the moment. You can go up to 100 plus on the Autobahn in third gear. It's a remarkable range on the third gear, so it makes it actually quite easy to drive in that respect, because you're just don't really have to change gear a lot. You have to stir up the gearbox. That third gear just keeps pulling. Pull. It's 5-speed gearbox. I mean, I don't notice that it doesn't have 6 gears or more. If you might do, driving more modern cars. As a member of the Sunday Historic 911 Driving Club, unofficial, wave at fellow 911 owners. Tell you what though, I never see these 964s anymore. I don't know how many are left on the road. I did try and find out actually this morning but there don't seem to be any specific figures I can lay my hands on. If anybody knows how many 964 C4s or just 964s there are on the road in the UK at the moment, I'd be really interested to know. 964 of course came from a time when 911s were being a little over-engineered. Very expensive to make, very expensive to buy. This one was £54,400 when it was bought in August 1990 by Mr. Clive Arthey, who I've met, a very nice gentleman. And yeah, I worked that out as being the equivalent of about 115,000 in today's money. And that was a couple of years ago, so I imagine it's worth even more now, comparatively. It's a very expensive car in the day. One thing you can't obviously convey on video is the smell of this thing. It's a very, very distinctive smell. It's kind of like an oil and petrol-y, leathery smell. You just don't get it in new cars at all. And it's been the same since I bought it. In fact, I did for a time, I've almost forgotten this, but before I had this, I had sometime before, I had a left-hand drive 964 for a little while, maybe a year or so. A black one, it was very nice. That had exactly the same smell. I imagine if you sit in any 911 from this period, they all have that very distinctive smell. Very old-fashioned smell, really. Of course, you've got the 5 dials in front of you, the classic 5 dials. This car, when it came out, was 85%, builds 85% new parts. The G series before it, 4-wheel drive of course, first time, based on the 959. All the tech in the 959, that amazing car from the late 80s, was brought into this series of 911. We actually launched the C4 before the C2 in this one. Yeah, it kind of makes you want to drive it fast, this car. It encourages you to drop a gear and accelerate. I think being quite small as well, so compared to modern day 911s, it's just very nice to drive about because you feel like you can just squirt it through small gaps. You're not really worried about your wing mirror coming off. Being 4-wheel drive, of course, you feel like it's a little bit more planted than the 2-wheel drive ones. I did have a 2-wheel drive 993 Targa at one point, and I used to get a little bit scared, I have to say, going over hills in that thing. The front end would just get so light. And it's a characteristic of 2-wheel drive 911s, but I didn't like it. So I've always gone for 4-wheel drive ones since then. Of course, out here with all the, especially in the autumnal leaves and slipperiness of the countryside, it's nice to have a 4-wheel drive. Of course, with the 964, it's the last time you really had these big kind of cannon chambers at the front with a sort of fenders which looked like cannons. After this, they started flattening out a bit, flattened out a bit in the 993, and then they flattened out significantly in the 996. They started bringing them back by popular demand, but they've never been quite as bulbous and big as this one. So it's a very distinctive look down the bonnet that you get when you're driving this thing. Just sitting there at about 3,000 revs. 4th gear, and you just know, you can just tell the engine just really wants to spin up, it just wants to go faster. still have to be a little bit careful how you feed this thing into corners. It's not quite as bad as the Widowmakers, obviously, of the G series, especially the turbo. But I can't remember an instant in 14 years where I've come unstuck in this thing. It's never been on a track. I don't think I'd want to take it on a track, really. I mean, I'd never forgive myself if I managed to prang it. Maybe a leisurely run round Goodwood would be interesting, with no other cars around. Brands Hatch, no. Not doing that long straight. Anyway, very, very lovely car, I have to say. Just slowing down a bit here because there's people on the road. But yeah, so £70,000, 14 years. Well, that's probably the true cost of committed classic car ownership, isn't it? Especially if you're getting involved in engine rebuilds and all this kind of stuff. Luckily for me, with this particular model, that investment's been offset by the increase in the value of the car, but also have to sell it to realise that value. And well, the problem is, if I sold this, I'd probably be unlikely to get another one, which is find another one. Slate grey was quite an unusual colour. Back in 1990, they were mostly red, maybe white. You would never see slate grey ones up for sale. My favourite colour. A day like today, it's absolute joy to drive it around these country roads. The afternoon sun, fantastic. So I think I'll just do a bit more of it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Ross on Cars. If you did, press like down below and also subscribe, because I've got lots of cars coming up this autumn. I'm back. My 75D is going to BCA car auctions on Tuesday, so I've got a new car coming. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to get, so suggestions very welcome at this stage. Also, if you would like to get involved with Movember, as it's now November, I'll put a link down below, and it would be great to see your support for this great charity. And hopefully see you soon.